All right, here we are. Welcome back to Read with Mish. It's me, Mish. I'm here to talk about, I guess, all of the books that I read through February and March. I really should do these monthly because then it would be easier to remember what happens in every book. Because, not all books are written equal, and some are just simply not as memorable as others. But it is what it is. We're here now. So this is all the books I read in February and March. The first book that I want to talk about is Lao Tzu's Dao De Jing. This book I started at the end of January actually, but I finished it at the start of February. This is the Ken Liu translation, which I believe is a little bit newer, and he also incorporated bits and pieces of texts and other stories from not just Lao Tzu, but from sort of related schools of thought. This book is nonfiction. It's more or less about the philosophical way of Taoism. So it made me think a lot. Mostly though, I think I came to this book at the right time. I was feeling very lost and very ungrounded in life, and I think it helped a lot. Not that it gave me like a clear sense of direction or purpose or anything, but I think I just I don't know, I think just like my values and my thought processes, I feel like align well with the way of Taoism, and so that was nice for me to read at the time. And I went through and like tabbed a bunch of stuff. I wrote little notes and just like thoughts that came up in my mind as I was reading, and I also underlined things. I think this is a book that I will come back to again and again. I definitely need to already go through it again and like really maybe journal about all of the thoughts that I had, because I think there's a lot to be said there. I think the beauty of the Dao De Jing and of Taoism as a whole is that it's rather open and ambiguous and broad, and I think it is, at the end of the day, it is a philosophy. It's a way of thinking, and so it really urges you to ponder what things mean within the context of the world as we see it outside, but also within the context of your life. And I think some people maybe aren't into that, but I really love that. So I think in another life I might have been a philosopher or something, a philosophy student, something along those lines, because I love the deep thinking. Yeah, it was really surprising. I didn't expect to like this book as much as I did, but I gave it 4.5 stars. It was really, really good, and I think this is a really good translation. I would recommend it. That being said, I haven't read any of the previous translations, so I don't really have a point of comparison. It's definitely not a self-help book. It's not at all in the vein of like Atomic Habits or anything where, the author is writing, do this, say that, try this, and like everything will change. It's not that. Again, it's very ambiguous and open, and I think really up for your own interpretation, and you really have to build your own relationship with the words in the text. And I think that's actually a really beautiful thing, and something that we all need to practice more, especially in this day and age. So yeah, that I think is all that needs to be said about the Dao De Jing. After that, I read Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This edition, I don't think you can get it individually, but this came in a box set that was gifted to me. It contains one book from each of the Bronte sisters, which is really cool, and they all are a different color, but they all more or less look like this, have the same design, and I love it so much. I read this in anticipation of the new film that came out, because I had never read Wuthering Heights before, and I have been throughout the years recently trying to read more classics. And then I also I like to read the book before I watch the movie if I can help it. That being said, I read the book, enjoyed it a fair amount. It wasn't my favorite book, but I liked it. And then I proceeded to not watch the film because, tell me, I guess if you watch the new film, tell me if you think I should watch it, if it's worth watching. Because I am a little bit conflicted because I was listening to like interviews with the director, and she seems to like have a very deep love for this novel and see a lot of value in it. I just am a little bit confused about why the film is rated R when the book is like so PG. There's like nothing really graphic at all. It's maybe PG-13 because some things are alluded to. I also hear that the movie, as well as all of the previous adaptations, have really focused on only one piece of the book, but the book is really like spans generations, not just one couple. And so I just am not really sure what to do with that information. It's like not really aligning for me. But again, if you liked it, let me know, and maybe I will reconsider my decision to not watch the movie. But yeah, my main thought while reading Wuthering Heights was just like, wow, there is so much drama in this little town, and man, am I glad that I grew up in a middle-sized city and not in a small town of like 5 people, because that is just drama just waiting to happen, apparently. That's all. I don't really have other thoughts on this book anymore. It was not my favorite classic that I've read, but it also was decent. I gave it 3.75 stars. After Wuthering Heights, I read Frederick Bachman's A Man Called Uwe, I think is how it's pronounced. This is a book that has been on my TBR for so long. I added it to my TBR, I think, when Jack Edwards talked about it for the first time, like years ago at this point, and eventually I acquired a copy, and then it just sat on my shelf, and I was like, it's time. It worked out nicely because I'm doing the Storygraph Read Around the World Challenge, and one of the countries this year is Sweden, and Frederick Bachman is a Swedish author, and the book takes place in a Swedish community. So that worked out nicely for my challenge, but I am glad that I finally read this book. I definitely understand why people adore this book and also his writing so much. It was like very approachable, and this book was just so sweet, and it has a theme or a trope, I guess, of found family, which is my personal favorite trope. I feel like I've said that before. But yeah, Uwe is just like a cranky old man, but he has like really such a good heart on the inside, and he wants to love and be loved just the same as everyone else, and I just it just warmed my heart. I really enjoyed it, so I rated it 4.45 stars on average. Then I read a few books that I don't have on hand right now. I borrowed The Moor's Account as an ebook from the library. It's by Layla. There's a lot of L's in her name. Okay, The Moor's Account by Layla Lalami, I believe her name is. I'll pop up a cover. This book is historical fiction. This book also happened to fall into my Read Around the World challenge this year. It is a story and an author from Morocco, and I am honestly not super clear on the actual history of Morocco and how it came to be, but what I've found in doing these Read Around the World challenges every year is that a lot of these books in other countries touch on themes of colonization and colonialism, and this book is no different. It's a story about how colonization unfolds and the many negative consequences of it. And this book really goes to show that colonization was not only bad for the people being colonized, but was often also not that great for the colonizers, because obviously if you're doing something negative, like negative energy is gonna come back at you. So it was an interesting perspective in my opinion, and I enjoyed it. I did make some annotations, and some of the quotes were surprising, so let me read you one that I wrote down. This one I highlighted for the prose, I think. It says, "My first impression was of the silence all around us. No, silence is not the right word. There was the sound of waves, after all, and a soft breeze rustled the leaves of the palm trees. Along the path, curious seagulls came to watch us and departed again in a flutter of wings, but I felt a great absence." I just thought that was really beautiful, the way that it was described. I relate also to the sense of unsilent silence. I think anyone who lives in like a bigger urban environment can maybe relate to that. I also want to share this quote. It reads, "Maybe there is no true story, only imagined stories, vague reflections of what we saw and what we heard, what we felt and what we thought. Maybe if our experiences in all of their glorious, magnificent colors were somehow added up, they would lead us to the blinding light of the truth." I think that really just speaks for itself. It's so beautiful. So this book was something that I picked up intentionally for the Read Around the World Challenge as a piece of literature from or based in Morocco, and I didn't really know what to expect going into it, and it really surprised me with some of the lines and the prose, so I'm very glad that I read it. I rated it 3.9 stars. And then after that was a surprising book. I don't have it. I really want to get it so that I can reread it and like write in it and tab things and make notes. I read a book called Our Precious Wars by Perrine Trippier, I want to say. The author is French, so I probably am saying that not correctly, but I will pop up a cover. This book I sort of found on a whim at the library. I just had some extra time one day and I finished my book, so I went to the library and I was browsing, and then this book caught my attention because of the cover, and then I read the blurb on the back and that caught my attention, and then I just sat down and started reading, and it was the most beautiful thing that I have ever read. So I checked it out and I read it, and I'm so glad that I did, and I so wish that we could bring back the days of just like finding random books at the library on the shelves just from browsing. I know that sometimes we do that still, but it feels just like a different environment and context these days. It just feels so good to go into a library or a bookstore and just like pick from like the vast expanse of books that is available. It's like it's a feeling that I don't even really know how to describe, but it feels so good for a reason that, again, I don't know how to articulate. This book also happened to fall into my Read Around the World challenge for this year again, because the author is French, the book is from France, and yeah, it's the author's debut work, and it's so stunning. I will say that it's not a book that I would recommend to everybody. It's just like a very reflective piece of work, and the main character, we sort of see her in the present as she's in her old age, and she's sort of looking back on her growing up and her young adulthood, through aging, and it's just very reflective, and it's written in a way that I've never seen before, where it's written in seasons, so every part is like a season. So it's like summer, I don't remember the order, but I think it starts with summer because that was her favorite season to remember as an adult, looking back on her childhood. But it just was this book was just like so beautifully written, and I wish I had more words to describe it, but I words are escaping me right now, and I just really want to read this book again already. I rated it 4.8 stars, but I rounded it up to 5 for sure. Oh, and then I'm looking at my notes now. It is a book about life that is both grand in scheme and in scale on one hand, because we see her, you know, whole life trajectory in a way, but at the same time it's so zeroed in and focused and feels just like very slice of life. And it's also a book that sort of brings up the question of what it means to live in the present versus to live or be stuck in the past, and is it ever okay to be stuck in the past if those were your happier years? It's a really interesting thought question, because we put so much value in living in the present and like 100%. We don't want to waste our time, and we got to get there somehow. And so if that somehow is living in the past or daydreaming about the future, then like, what do we do, you know? And yeah, the book is also about a home, a physical place that the narrator, the main character, is like super connected with and drawn to in a way that none of her other family members are. And so it also made me think about like what makes a place home. What makes a place home? It made me think a lot, and I really liked it. After that, I read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I have this book in physical, but it's not with me because my partner is reading it. I read this book finally in anticipation of the movie that just came out, and that is still probably at this point playing in theaters. I have heard only good things about it, and I agree completely. I adored this book. I was very surprised. I don't know what I expected this book to be, but it wasn't what I got. There was a lot more science in the book than I thought there would be. So I was like, oh, I'm like relearning physics right now. This is cool. And yet at the same time, it was like so approachable and also funny. It made me laugh out loud, which is really rare, honestly. And man, the character development, I love Rocky. I want to be Rocky's friend, and I need more books. I need more books, Andy Weir. Please make it a series, because I want to be Rocky's friend, and I'm not ready to let him go. So yeah, I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm excited to see it. Yeah, just so delightful. It was very surprising. I rated it 4.9 stars, which also rounded up, of course, to a 5-star. After Project Hail Mary, I read This Story Might Save Your Life. I read it on my Kobo, so I don't have this in physical either, but I was browsing the Kobo store. I found this book that is kind of a mystery, and I haven't really read a mystery or anything that's even tangential to mystery in like a decade, like since high school, maybe even middle school, honestly. So it was a long time coming, and it had good reviews, so I got it, and I read it pretty quickly. It was very engaging. I liked the characters, and I was very invested in their story, and yeah, it was good. But it wasn't like my favorite book ever. It did like keep me surprised, and it kept me on my toes. So I rated it a solid 4 stars. It was a solid book. After that, I read The Undying by Anne Boyer. This is a nonfiction memoir meets like poetry prose meets like socio-political expose. This book was very surprising. I thought that it was gonna be just like a standard memoir. I have a lot of memoirs. I love memoirs. And it definitely wasn't. The way that it was written surprised me. The author, Anne Boyer, is writing about her experience with cancer, and so something that she keeps coming back to throughout this book is how does one write about cancer, one, and two, like who gets to write about cancer, because so many books about cancer are not from the cancer patient's perspective, and they're from a grieving friend or grieving family members. And that's an interesting question there, I think, because to be the one that's going through it is obviously an experience that you just simply can't know until you've experienced it yourself. There are just some things in this life that we just simply have to experience in order to understand, and I think that cancer or any like chronic illness is certainly one of them. And so this book was really powerful. The author is also a poet, and so that definitely shows in how the book is written. It's really beautiful, and she definitely has a way with words. It also opened my eyes to some things that I know are problems within society as a whole, but that I didn't really stop to really think about before. For example, she talks about the pink ribbons that are associated with breast cancer, and this like marathon run for awareness situation. Awareness is important, and we need to talk about things in order for things to get done. And yet she also writes about how a lot of these sort of campaigns, I guess, are really just capitalist and money driven, and sure, they bring in money, but where does the money go? Because it's not really actually going to the researchers or the research that needs to happen. It made me think a lot. If you don't know, I have a background in public health, and I used to be pre-med, so I have like a very a deep interest in the healthcare space and in the medical space, and I haven't read a book that's like directly out of the medical space in a long time, and so I really am like looking forward to reading more again, even though it's like heavy and infuriating and just like So I rated The Undying 4.25 stars. After The Undying, I read Himself by Jess Kidd. This book I quite enjoyed. It wasn't the best thing that I've read, but it also definitely wasn't the worst, and I liked it quite a bit. My experience reading this book was a little bit inconsistent. There were moments where I was like super into it and super engaged, and then there were other moments that felt a little bit slower and like more of a drag. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but it's a cast of very quirky characters, and it is a very interesting premise. It's about a man who goes back to the place where he was born after he finds out that there might have been foul play involved in the death of his mother, which led to him growing up in an orphanage. And so he goes to try to investigate and figure out what actually happened back in the day, and he shows up in this like tiny town, and like, to say the least, most people are not so thrilled that he has shown up in this town to like ruffle up old feathers. And yeah, the characters are wacky, but interesting for sure. Yeah, the whole time I was just wondering like who in this book is actually trustworthy. Like, is anyone on his side? A solid read. I rated it 3.9 stars, so right around a 4. Okay, the last book that I read that I want to talk about is The Long Walk by Stephen King. I read this on my Kobo, so I don't have it in physical. I'll pop up a cover. It was actually one of only 3 Stephen King ebooks that were available immediately, so I just chose it because it was the most enticing one. And I believe that this is the book that he wrote first, not in terms of publication, but in terms of when he actually started writing. And so I think that is pretty impressive, because this book is like, it is quite literally a book about walking, and at the same time so much is happening in it, and it's honestly a pretty impressive work. Only Stephen King could write a book about walking in this way and make it so engaging and interesting. There are also allusions to like the draft and the war from back when this book was put out. So I think there's some interesting commentary and parallels there. Yeah, if you like Hunger Games or like Squid Game energy. That's kind of what this book was giving. It's basically a crazy like walking contest where you're not allowed to stop walking. Like if your speed decreases to 4 miles per hour, below 4 miles per hour, then you're in trouble. And yeah, just what a wild premise. Stephen King is really unparalleled in his ability to like write stories and write characters. All in all, I'm not super sure how I feel about this book. I've read a fair number of Stephen King books so far, and this one probably falls in the middle. I rated it 3.65 stars. So yeah, if you're curious about it, I would recommend it, but it's definitely not the first Stephen King novel that I would recommend. That was all of the books that I read in February and March. There might be another video coming soon because I did a little book haul, a small one, and I'm also doing a book unhaul, so maybe I will make a video about that. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for being here, if you're here, if you've stuck around, and yeah, if you like what you see, maybe give me a like or a comment or a subscribe, and I will post more content eventually. Until then, happy reading. Okay, bye.